Hello everyone, and welcome to my complex body rigging guide. This guide is going into depth on how to rig a VTuber's model's body with the use of augmented body physics. Because of how in-depth this complex body rigging is, you will not be able to do it in the free version of Live 2D. For that, please check out my series Simple Body Rigging, and you'll be able to follow along with that. And so, let's just get started. The first thing I normally do when I start a VTuber model is I start from the head down. And the only thing we have left to do on the head for the body is the head's cast shadow. So we're first gonna turn our head shadow into an art mesh. I'm just gonna use the standard auto meshing for this. And then I'm going to put all of that stuff into a warp deformer. I'm then going to make sure that I grab my head shadow and I put the head shadow's clipping mask to that of the neck's base color, not the neck shadow. I then add the warp deformer to the angle X physics and angle Y physics, and I will move it in accordance with how the head angles are to make sure that it follows along with the same sort of thing. And that's about it. Starting from the basics of how to set up a component for rigging, we're first going to make an arm mesh. So we're going to grab the base neck color for the neck, and we're going to go into our edit mesh tool. In there, we're going to make sure that we remove any verts that are already there, and we're going to grab the stroke mesh tool and start lining the outside of the neck area. Once we have that all figured out, we have all of our components for our stroke mesh all where we want it to be. We're going to select verts that are close to each other that we need to merge together by right-clicking the screen and going down to merge verts. And we're going to merge all those areas so that there is no open mesh. If you have any sections of the mesh that still need some touch-ups, grab the pen tool and connect those open verts and components if you feel like that's necessary. Once we have all of the verts closed and all of the components ready to go, we are then going to press Ctrl A and copy all of the components by pressing Ctrl C, and then we're going to save all of our mesh and exit out, and we're going to grab our neck outline. So we're going to then go back into the mesh edit tool, remove any verts, and press Ctrl V, and we'll have the exact copy of the mesh we made for the other component of the neck. We're then going to save out of this and grab both components, the neck base color and the neck outline, and we're going to go back into the mesh edit tool, select everything by Ctrl A, and glue it all together by pressing Ctrl G, and head on over to the glue itself. We will then grab the glue weight AB tool, which is on the far right. It has the glue with the red and green on top. And then we're going to make sure that all of the weight is set to red, which is all set to follow the one component. We're going to once again grab a warp deformer and call it angle Z neck. We're then going to add that to our angle Z physics that we made with headcoon, and then move the warp deformer to the left. Now that we have all the neck and head components done, we are going to grab all of the head and torso components and place them inside a warp rotation deformer that we are going to call body Y. We will then use this later on to create a slight body movement up and down, making it look like we're breathing or our movements are going up and down. Now we're going to grab all the components of the torso itself. This will mean the boobs, the armpits, the torso outline, shading, base, all of it. We're not going to grab the collarbone or the neck though. We're going to leave those for another time. And we're going to add all of those into a warp deformer that I'm going to call torso. We are then going to set up all of the art mesh for the torso components, such as the torso outline and the torso base color and the shading. And I'm not going to repeat all of that we talked about previously, so enjoy the montage. Just a quick fact that if you want to copy a portion of the mesh from the one side to the other. Press Control A and then Control C to copy the mesh. Right-click the screen and press reflect horizontally and move it into position where you want. And then you can just press Control V and you'll have the mesh exactly where it was previously, and you'll have it on both sides. When you're doing the torso shading mesh, please remember to follow any of the muscles or key features depicted on the shading itself. This will make it so we can manipulate the appearance of these components a lot more easily when we go into actually rigging it. We're gonna actually start with the body X position. So we're gonna grab our torso base and our torso base outline, and we're gonna add those into a warp deformer that we're gonna call body X. We're then going to add those to our body X physics parameter, and we're going to start moving it into our desired positions left and right. And once we are satisfied with our body X position movements, we're going to move on to our shadings. We're going to grab the art mesh for the shading itself, and we're going to add that to our body X physics parameter. We are then going to manipulate the art mesh components that we drew on earlier to move according with how it should look to the left and to the right. And this will give us that sense of depth and reality that we don't get if they're stuck together, you know. Once we have all of that set up and we're happy with how our body X appears, we're going to go into the physics settings up at the top, and we're going to set up our augmented body physics. So in the physics settings, we're going to create a new physics group called body X. In the input settings, we're going to make sure that our settings for our inputs are body X, and that we have that at a type angle, and it's set at 80% effectiveness. If we go down to our pendulum, it should be set to the following. 14.4 duration, 0.85 shaking, 1 reaction, and 1.5 overall. Your output settings should be to the Body X physics. And once you have all that set up, you can hit increase output and you should start to see the movement. You can adjust the duration of the pendulum and stuff in accordance with how you feel it could look, but this is personally what I like to use. And then we're gonna repeat everything in the Y. So we'll see when that's all done. Once we have all of our body Y for the torso set up and ready to go, and we have all of our angles done, we're going to grab that rotation deformer we made earlier called Body Y, and we're going to add that into the Body Y physics and slightly move it up and down according with our up and down movements. When you go into the body physics, I'll show you guys how this will look, but it'll give you a sense of breathing. Now, for the Body Y physics, it's pretty much all the same as Body X, so we're going to duplicate our Body X and we're going to rename it to Body Y. In our input field, we're going to make sure that it has Body Y instead of Body X, and we're going to add breath as a type position at 5% and reflect it. In our output, make sure that you have that set to Body Y physics or it won't look right. And then I will go in and I will do this for the rest of the body angles, or I'll even do final adjustments to make sure everything looks how I want it to. Now we have the collarbone. We're gonna do the collarbone for the X position first. We'll do the Y later. So we're gonna glue the collarbone to the neck and adjust its glue weight so that the collarbone follows the torso. It's hard to explain, so what I like to do is I'll grab the two parts and glue them together, and I'll make it all weighted to the one component. For this part, I have it all weighted to the neck. And then I will slowly go in with the 10% weight of the collarbone component, and I will move the body to the left or to the right, and I will slowly adjust the weight by that 10% and just add it until it moves to where I want it and it looks how I expect it to. And then I'll repeat that for the other side. And lastly, we have the armpits. The armpits is just a repeat of what we did earlier, so just get to work. Alright, now it's the time that many people have been waiting for, the boobs. To start, I'm going to grab all the components of the left boobs, the shadow, the boob base, and I'm going to add that all into a warp deformer called Boob Left. I'm using this for just grouping. And I'm going to kind of shape this boob left into the shape of the boob, but it's not going to be super accurate. Underneath the Boob Left deformer, I will make a deformer called Boob X position and add the deformer to the Body X physics parameter. And this is what we will use to move the boob into its X positions. But remember, don't be like me and actually have your art mesh set up for the boob. I just used the standard auto mesh for the boobs on this one, and then I just copied it over to the shadow. Once you have your Boob X positions where you would like them to be, we're gonna grab the boob art itself, not the shadow, and we're gonna make a warp deformer called Boob Y position. And we're gonna move that into the, of course, Y positions for the boob by adding that to the Y body physics. But please remember that when you are moving this boob from in the Y position, to think of it as a water balloon. You want to move the bottom 2/3 of the boob, but leave the top third connected to the torso because it doesn't really move that much. That's where the muscles connect. We are now going to make another warp deformer called PY2. We're going to take our group deformer that we made called Boob Left, and we're going to now name it PY2. This will be our Boob Physics 2 for the Y. And we're going to add this to a Boob Physics Y parameter. And we're going to move this in the general idea of how the boob would shake or have physics. Kind of think of it like a water balloon bouncing, and you'll be able to understand how it should look. Again, try to move the bottom 2/3, but not the top third. Below the PY2 warp deformer, we're going to make another warp deformer called Boob PY3. This deformer will go into its own parameter, as we mentioned before, and will focus on the side squish in and out with the up and down movement of the boob. Below PY3, we will create a layer called Boob PY1. This will move the boob sides from left, like side to side slightly, in accordance with the X boob movement. You can add even more components to the boob physics, but this is the bare minimum if you want to have some nice boob physics. Once we have all of our boob physics and all of our angles and stuff set up, we have 2 things left to do. We're going to duplicate the boob by selecting every component for the boob, the boob's arts, all of the warp deformers that we did, and then we're going to press Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V to duplicate it. Right-click the screen to reflect it horizontally in the X. Make sure that you have your angle X and your Boob X physics all ready to selected. And then we're gonna do the draw order. So draw order is really simple. Select the boob art and add it to the body X physics parameter. And when the boob should appear in front of the other one, just add one to the draw order and repeat that for the other side. One last thing that this model has for the boobs is it has a dark top shadow for the boobs. I will once again repeat all the steps that we did previously, make the art mesh, put in a warp deformer, do the angle positions, all the rest of that. And so the warp deformers have a component called opacity. For all of the components, I will have it set to around 50% opacity. And when the Y is at its maximum, so up, where you're facing up, I will increase the opacity slightly to make it appear dark. Now we just have the collarbone position Y left to do. So we're gonna grab that collarbone component earlier and we're gonna make another warp deformer on top of it that we're gonna call collarbone Y. As you look up, you're gonna wanna make sure that the collarbone moves up and goes closer to the shoulder area so it looks like there's less space between the two. And when you face down, you'll wanna make sure that the line moves down, but the shoulders move up. You will have to adjust some of the glues if necessary. It will really depend on what you're looking for. And again, it's just very simple as to adjust things in accordance with how you want them to look. And then you're all done with the main torso. And that's the first part of the complex body rigging all done. In the next part, we're going to be covering all of the arm components and the leg components for the rigging. But I felt like this video was long enough as it is. So until next time, I hope you all have a great time studying. I do have my head coon tutorial series and assets you can download to study with right now. Or if you guys have a specific thing that you would like to see become a tutorial, please leave that down below in the comments and I'll be happily look into them. But for now, happy learning everyone, and I'll see you next time.